And that's, I think, the biggest thing that people have a tendency of forgetting when it comes to business is the sales aspect of it, is like learning how to sell, learning, you know, that whole process. Like, how did you, I mean, you were a trainer, obviously, for years and years, and that's selling. Like, people forget that. It's not just training people. The training people, it comes after the selling the people.
Yes. Well, fortunately for the personal training, my parents owned a business, so I should start there. They owned a business selling high-end appliances. Hey, you know, what a correlation. But so I grew up around fights at the dinner table, discussions at the dinner table about certain business values, how they work. I saw, God, this is a deep fucking path I could go down here.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
We haven't had like a business oriented conversation.
You know, I listened to discussions on, you know, how the customer's almost always right. But there's even the ones that aren't right still kind of need to be taken care of or not. You know, there's a balance, you know, where if it goes too far, you know, I learned you get back in the, you know, you make it known to that person that this is bullshit. Yep. You know, and it's people calling my dad to bitch about the range going out that was a year old on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
The conversations I heard there were not pleasant conversations.
I imagine.
You know, and now if it was somebody that just purchased it, he would leave and go fix the fucking range. You know, not call the repair guy that he had on staff, because that's his Thanksgiving with his kids. This is his business, his responsibility. So I grew up with those kind of things. I also grew up learning that if you think your state and local government are going to try to help you as a small business, you are fucked. You know, I saw that firsthand through blizzards, floods, storms, things that just trashed businesses to where, you know, they would get absolutely nothing, but the big box store, they're right back immediately. And it's like, no, wait a fuck, you know, so all those type of things, and there's a lot more. I could go on for hours about things I learned about business from that. Paid off a lot over the last few years, because it's like, oh yeah, you really think they give a fuck? Wrong, they don't. Move on, forget about it, go this way. You know, argue bitch all you want, but it's not going to change a fucking thing. They don't care. They only care about the people who are giving them a fucking shit ton of tax dollars. Maybe rightfully so. I can see both sides. You know, I get it. But either way, it doesn't change what has to be done with that. I kind of forgot where I was going with all this because of this. But, about the sales.
The sales, yeah.
So I learned from the salesman he had there, and this was just, instead of like, here goes sell these chocolate bars for football. I mean, the dude would sit down and say, now listen, try to sell me this chocolate bar. And I'm like, well, just buy the chocolate bar. Like, it's
just
football,
buy the
man.
thing. Yeah.
And he's like, no. So I kind of learned early on that, you know, other people were going house to house and house to house. I was just selling all 50 to one fucking person. Just go find the person and say, hey, you know, here's this is for this. You just got to have take the time to build the right inside track to be able to sell that one person. You make one sale, you're done. You don't have to worry about it. But when I graduated, my first job was with Bally selling memberships, and there was more formalized sales training there, which was, I like more of a spin sales approach. There's different sales approach, but it's more of a hard sales approach. But I didn't like that hard closing approach. But what I learned that carried over to the personal training aspect is there's really only 4 objections: time, commitment, spouse, and money. That's it. So if you have dialogue with them, you know, so how does your spouse feel about you training, getting healthier? You know, so what time are you going to work out? I mean, just throwing examples out.
Yeah, right.
You know, what brings you in here today? And da 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 da. Have you ever come in before or gone somewhere before for that same thing? So are you more committed now? You see, so I'm trying to get these things because when you go to close, it's usually, well, I need to talk to my significant other. You know, so now you're in a headspace that you got to be able to read people non-verbally, but you're kind of in a headspace where you could say, well, didn't you just tell me that they were supportive? Mm-hmm. You know, would you like to give them a call
verbal
right
jousting.
Now? It is. Yeah. It is. And there's the right ways and wrong ways to go about all this.
Right.
You know, sometimes you just do want to back off on it, mm-hmm. you know, because you don't want to get involved with that. But sometimes you can tell this is just the excuse.
Yeah.
And time commitment. Usually it's money, mm-hmm. right? So if you can get them to money, then at least you've taken the other objectives off the table. And then it may be money because maybe you just offered the biggest package there was.
Right.
And there's 2 other packages that you would be able to offer. Mm-hmm. Or there's other options, you know, that get them within that range.
Yeah.
Usually, for me though, usually that's where I stopped. Mm-hmm. Now, the way I was trained...
just insult.
The way I was trained was the insulting part of it. Well,
yeah.
Let's figure out how much money you're spending getting out of shape each day.
Yeah, right.
Now, that's where it gets to me a little bit too hard pressed. Mm-hmm. But I do think that conversation has a place mm-hmm. in a way beforehand with Gen Pop.
For sure.
Because they may be spending an obscene amount of money each week on things that they really don't think are as bad or getting them out of shape mm-hmm. is, let's say, the Starbucks coffee monster, you know, stuff like that. You start adding all that stuff up. And sometimes with just a slight moderation in that, they had the money, you know, to be able to hire the trainer to be able to get in shape. Mm-hmm. But again, that's a careful conversation to be able to have, and maybe one that just comes off of the table if they're new to the club yep. and new to training, to where you hold that, you've built this relationship on these other things. Let's just get them started and showing up on a regular basis, doing their own thing. Yep. But then you can have those other conversations as you're visiting with them during downtime. Mm-hmm. And that's how I did that. You know, that was a big part of it. The other part was, I'm terrible with people's name. I'm still not sure I know your fucking name, right?
Yeah, I did. I know for a fact.
Actually, we got this dude that trains on the weekend. I think its name is John, Nate, or Calvin.
Yeah, it changes. It changes.
Now it's got so fucked up, I don't even know. Cameron, there, yep. right? So the other big thing that I did, and I don't know how much this is going to really impact unless you work in a club where you're getting those people off of the floor, mm-hmm. is anytime I would meet somebody, I write down their name, write down. The club I worked at did laundry, mm-hmm. so I was able to write down the shirt, shorts, shoes. A lot of clubs don't do that, but normally people are going to train in the same shoes.
Yep.
So you can write down the shoes just to be able to equate who that person is. Yep. So like red hair, you know, Nike shoes with green stripe, mm-hmm. orange laces.
Right.
And then each time you see them, you just have normal small talk, but then you write down what they're doing. You talked about. Yeah. Because eventually over a period of time, you're going to figure out their kids play soccer. Or mm-hmm. Then when the season happens, and then when you come in, it's like, you know, hey, Jill, how'd Jamie do at this soccer game this weekend? All that shit adds up over a period of time. Mm-hmm. So this notebook, secrets, whatever you want to call it, relationship book would be a good thing. Because even if it didn't lead to that person being a client, it still built a better relationship with that person who could refer a client. But within the first 2 months of the club I was at, I was full. I was capped out. I had mm-hmm. no more room in the schedule. And that was because of that. And I am not a social person. Right. Not at all. Right. So this was intentional, you know, for that reason, to be able to get that. Then it's just building the referrals from there. Mm. Online, that's a whole different ball.
It's a weird animal.